Dan Dare, Pilot of the Future, based on the classic British comic strip Dan Dare, and for those who have never heard of him before, he was the space pilot hero of schoolboys all the way back in the 1950s. Virgin's Gang of Five team continue his adventures in this awesome game for the Commodore 64. Why do I think it's awesome? Well, let's have a look. For the uninitiated, Dan Dare first appeared in the Eagle comic and quickly built up a huge following, which continued until the demise of the comic somewhere in the 60s. Dan kicks off his computer adventures with one of the toughest missions he has ever volunteered to undertake. An alien, the green, swollen-headed Mekon, along with his group of followers known as Treens, have sworn to terminate mankind's existence and have placed an atomic bomb inside of an asteroid on a collision course with Earth. Dan, accompanied by a doggish pet thing called Stripey, wanders around inside the asteroid looking for the Mekon's lair and trying to save Digby, who's been kidnapped along with someone called Professor Peabody. I don't know much about the original strip, but I'm assuming that Professor Peabody doesn't have an actual P for a body. This little fella has to be one of the best aardvarks ever programmed too, or whatever he is. Answers on a postcard please. Anyway, you control Dan as he walks around looking for things to do. Unlike a lot of games in this genre, you won't find yourself catapulted into distinctive rooms filled with useful looking objects to grab and ponder the use of. Instead, you'll find a lot of caverns, and your first task is to find where the exits are in the edges of many screens, because they're not obvious much of the time. In between exploring, you'll have occasional fisticuffs with Treens, who are patrolling the caverns, presumably having drawn the short straw in the guards' barracks. Unlike incarnations on other computers of the time, there aren't any guns in this game, and so when you run into a Treen, you'll have to engage them in gentlemanly fisticuffs. This would be fun if the fighting mechanism wasn't so inept. Essentially, you push fire, and then up to have Dan raise his arms, and down to have him move them to roughly the middle of his body. Generally, I just hold down fire and the relevant direction, causing Dan to punch over and over until the enemy was defeated, because that's the most complicated and involving it gets, and that's all the skill it takes.
And Lady Mouse shiver inside and she said, "Wait, wham, bam, gonna make you my man."
Essentially, each fight is a foregone conclusion, but sometimes you might lose some health in the process, which can't be helped. You also have some grenades, which can be lobbed at Treens if you can't be arsed fighting, but apparently they should be reserved for fighting the Mekon, so don't do it. Aside from throwing grenades and engaging in fistfights, you are able to pick up items, open hatches, and occasionally ask Stripey to help you out. To do all this, you need to be near something that you can interact with. Hold the fire button down and move the joystick up and down to select actions. There are some minor puzzles, such as an electrified hatch that you need to open with a tree branch, but in order to finish the game with best possible results, you'll need to complete all of the puzzles and explore the whole game. The surface has 3 entrances to the prison complex, and although you'll only need to find one to be able to play the game to the end, the game's instructions leaflet tells you that you need to open all entrances in order to save all prisoners and defeat the Mekon. There are 4 distinctly different sections, with the first one obviously the asteroid surface where you start the game. The second section is the prison complex, where you should find Dan's friends, and you need to somehow gain access to security passes, carried only by certain Treen guards. Certain rooms are dark, unless you pick up a torch from the first section, adding to the puzzle element in the game, with the third section giving you the chance to destroy the computers controlling the Mekon's attack on Earth, with a giant industrial laser. Here you need to turn a series of reflectors. This was probably my favourite part in the game, but depending on how much time you have remaining, it can get pretty tense. This section of programming was reused by the team at Gang of Five on another game which I've covered on the channel called Rebel. Made by the same team that created the Dan Dare game for the Commodore 64, Gang of Five, I could see the similarities in the part of Dan Dare where you need to use the reflectors with the laser, and they must have used that concept as an inspiration for this reflector, mirror, laser puzzle style tank game. Finally, you will face the Mekon, or Mr. Melonhead as I used to refer to him as a kid. You need to throw grenades at him and destroy the dome he's perched in. Succeed in beating the Mekon and the self-destruct sequence will activate. Now you must find your way back to your ship, the Anastasia, on the surface of the asteroid. And voila! Mission complete.
Mission completed.
10 points if you can tell me which game that sample was from. The Commodore 64 is very different to the Spectrum and Amstrad version, and because the three versions were so utterly different from each other, it's impossible really to compare which one was the best, so I suppose it all depends on which system you grew up with. Mind you, looking at the graphics on both the Spectrum and Amstrad version, I'm so blooming glad my brother bought a Commodore 64 back in 1982 and not one of the others. Yeah. All three versions of Dander have a common game design choice however. They are all side-viewed flip-screen adventure games. You don't need to play any version for more than about 10 seconds to notice rather major design differences between the three versions though. The C64 version uses a strange hand-to-hand fighting system, while the other two use laser guns. The puzzles are simple, but nonetheless challenging enough to complete within the 1 hour game time limit before the asteroid reaches Earth. You might not find everything in your first playthrough, granted, but it definitely encourages repeat playthroughs until you've solved the whole game and rescued both of your friends. The game mechanics are very clever, and whenever a window indicates an object nearby, you can hold the fire button and choose between several actions. It certainly felt that Dander was a game ahead of its time. I was instantly hooked when I first played it, and the title song is one of the greatest theme songs on the Commodore 64 and sets the atmosphere even before you've started playing. It also brings back a million nostalgic memories from playing this when I was a kid. The combat is a bit crap, but everything else is very nicely put together. Easily one of the better arcade adventures on the C64, and well worth a play. In fact, sod it, I'm giving this one a big thumbs up. Thanks for watching guys, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to leave a comment in the section below and let me know your childhood memories of this awesome game. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel and are enjoying the nostalgic memories, because there's hopefully a whole lot more waiting to be unearthed on the channel playlists. Hopefully, I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, bye for now.